am happy to introduce Ellen Biller, who is the founder of Road to Mafraq. She's a global development professional and Evansville native focused on the Middle East. In 2013, she founded Road to Mafraq, an organization working to increase access to education for Syrian and Iraqi refugees, with a focus on empowerment of grassroots, locally run organizations in Jordan. In addition to her work with Road to Mafraq, she has consulted for NGOs throughout Southeast Asia, serving undersourced and disenfranchised communities, including orphans, refugees, and victims of human trafficking, and spent 5 years working to reform public benefits programs in the state of Connecticut. She holds a Master of Social Work from the University of Connecticut with a focus in public policy and international social work, and a BA in English Literature from the University of Southern Indiana. She has lived, worked, and traveled in over 35 countries. Please join me in welcoming Ellen.
Awesome. Great to be here tonight, University of Evansville. Thanks so much for having me. Can you guys hear me okay with this? All right, I'll probably at some point abandon this because I'm just kind of a natural yeller. So if you can't hear me, just kind of do this or something and let me know, and I'll pick it back up. But fantastic to be here. Great to be back in Evansville. As Gabriella said, this is my hometown, born and raised here. Proud graduate of Evansville North High School. No one else agreed with that. That's very scary. An alum of the University of Southern Indiana. So really, no hard feelings. Glad to be here. Fantastic to have some of my teachers here tonight. Where are you guys? Some of my professors from USI. I think it's always so funny. Like I never let my parents come to my talks, because I get nervous. But then my teachers can come, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my teacher's here. So thanks for coming. Thank you, just Evansville community, for being so fabulous. I don't know if you guys realize what an amazing, special community this is. I have lived all over the world and the country, and there's no place quite like Evansville. You have the benefits of being a big city, but you feel like a small town, and so cherish that and keep doing what you're doing. Thanks so much for Scholars for Syria for having me here tonight, and thank you for what you're doing. It's just incredible. It's been great to follow you guys and follow your journey. Great to follow along with the journeys of the Syrian students who are here at UE. What do we have? 22, did you say, Bev? And thank you so much, Bev, for all your hard work to recruit folks from all over the world. Bev and I just met for the first time in Jordan about a week and a half ago. So she's doing a lot of great things to recruit students from the Middle East, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So for all of you who are here, who are from the Middle East, Ahlan, we are so glad to have you. We're glad to have you in our community, glad to have you here at UE, and looking forward to seeing what you do once you graduate. I just want to start tonight with a little video, we didn't have quite a chance to completely check all the audio, so bear with me 1 minute. But we launched yesterday our Human Story campaign, and so I just want to preface tonight's talk, as well as our conversation, around what you're going to see in the video. Because you hear a lot in the news about politics, you hear about policies, and you hear a lot of contentious debate. Tonight is not about that. Tonight is about the people of Syria. It's about the people of Iraq, and it's about the real stories that are kind of behind all of the news headlines. I think it's just really important to focus on that, so I just want to preface our conversation. At Road to Mafraq, we believe that the war in Syria and what's happening in the Middle East is not just happening to people over there. It's a human story. It's not just a story for Syrians. It's not just a story for the Middle East. It's a human story, and it's a story of which we're all a part. And so yesterday we launched our latest campaign to raise $75,000 to support education for Syrian and Iraqi refugees who live in Jordan specifically. And this is kind of the foundation of that campaign, is really just that slogan. As I was driving here yesterday, I drove from Boston. I live in Boston. I drove it all in one day. I actually haven't done that since grad school 10 years ago, so I surprised myself. I've actually just came back Sunday night from the Middle East, spending about 2 weeks in Jordan. And so I'm a little bit jet lagged still. And then I decided, driving from Boston to Evansville would be a fantastic idea. So as I rounded the bend at Cincinnati, kind of when you come over the bridge and you're heading into Covington there into Kentucky, and that's always kind of like the final stretch for me. And I just said to myself, why am I doing this? I am so tired. Why am I doing this? And it just kind of seemed insane, and then it's starting to rain and it's just getting nuts. And then I realized I'm doing this because I care about this with my whole heart. And I think that'll come across tonight for you. And I hope that when you leave tonight, if you don't already, that you'll feel the same way that I do. And so I just wanted to preface tonight with that, so that you guys can know where I'm coming from. Despite the rather glowing introduction that Gabriella gave, I'm not an amazing person. I'm an average person. I'm a person just like all of you in this room. I'm a homegrown Evansville native, and I'm just somebody who happens to believe that when bad things happen in the world, even though we can't solve them, we do have a responsibility to respond to them. And so that's what we at Road to Mafraq are dedicated to responding to the needs of what's happening in Syria. We recognize we can't stop this war. We can't solve all the problems in the Middle East or anywhere else for that matter. But we do believe, as we say in the video, we do believe in the dreams of the children of Syria. And we do believe that we can have an impact in individual students' lives. And so, what is the Road to Mafraq? People always ask us this. They're always like, what is a Mafraq? So a Mafraq is not a thing. It's a place. It's a place in northern Jordan. It's a city of about 70,000 Jordanians, which has more than doubled, in the past 5 years since the war in Syria started. It's just a couple kilometers from the border with Syria. And now they have about 70 to 100,000 Syrians living in this town. So I always try to ask people, especially when I speak to students, how do you think you might feel if the population of your city or your town doubled overnight? Imagine if that happened here in Evansville, how overwhelming that would be. I had a 5th grader say, I think I would just feel so overwhelmed. And that's perfect, that's so insightful. That's exactly how they're feeling in Mafraq and throughout the rest of the Middle East. So as much as we talk about the European refugee crisis, let's keep in mind that the brunt of the refugees coming in are coming into places like Jordan and northern Iraq and Turkey, Egypt and Lebanon. And so we at Road to Mafraq are committed to helping those families, and that's where our focus is, specifically in Jordan. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we are not religiously affiliated, we're not politically affiliated, although sometimes that's difficult when people post on our Facebook page that they think, they see a video like this and they post, good, let them all stay in Jordan, It's hard not to be politically affiliated, but we are not seeking to solve policy issues. We are seeking to solve human issues. And we believe that these children that you just saw are the future of Syria. We believe that the students here who are from Syria are the future of Syria. We believe that they are the hope for peace and reconciliation. And so I just want to spend a couple minutes tonight introducing you to some of the folks that you saw in that video and sharing with you their personal stories and sharing with you their hopes and dreams. Because as much as the news talks about the negative about what's happening over there, there's also a lot of really positive, amazing things happening. And I've been traveling over there and doing this work for about 3 years now, and it's been really interesting to see kind of the change. At the same time that you have seen parents become more hopeless about the prospect of ever returning to Syria, you have seen the children become so much more alive and full of hope. And I posted a video on our Facebook page the other day, and I said, how do we know that our partner programs are having an impact in the lives of these kids? And I said, because 3 years or 6 months ago, they wouldn't have acted like this. And it's like this video of this kid like, well, just sticking her tongue out the camera, and then they all come up like, I was there 6 months ago, and Nick Colbert here was there with me at one of our partner schools, and these kids were not acting like that. They were cowering in the background. They were afraid of the camera. They didn't want to have their picture taken. And now, literally, like, you cannot keep them away from you. And every 3 seconds, it's throw me up in the air, you know. So they're just really changing. And so I just want you to keep that in mind. That as you see these hopeless messages, there is also hope. These 2 girls are an example of that hope. These 2 girls are going to school now. They're back where they belong in the classroom, in large part thanks to you and the Evansville community. We've got a lot of supporters based in this community. We've got a lot of events that have happened in this community in Evansville. And so I just want to spend a couple minutes at the beginning kind of going over for you the impact that you, Evansville, specifically have had. This is not typically a part of my talk, but since you guys have been so engaged, I just want to share this with you. This is a little guy who goes to one of our partner schools along the Syrian border in Jordan. These kids go to school in tents. So what you see him in is his classroom. They sit on a tiny little cushion, maybe about like almost the size of these little squares on the floor, and then they have a tiny little plastic desk with like holes in it. Or a stool that serves as their desk. And that's their school. And so one of the ways in which you have had an impact is by, we have just put a significant amount toward getting these kids out of these tents and into like some prefab aluminum containers. I know that doesn't sound awesome to those of us who go to school in a room like this. But when you go to school in a tent every day, Liz Reedford, who's here, she is an Evansville citizen who works at USI, and she just traveled with me to Jordan, and we were doing this visit together. And she can attest, this is not, you know, a great place to learn. It is a difficult place to learn. It is a cold place to learn in the winter, and it's a hot place to learn in the summer. The orange that you see is the tarp that goes over the tent to protect them from the wind and the sand. And so one of the things that you're doing is helping get these kids out of tents and helping supply their classrooms with actual desks and books and school supplies, like this Lightning McQueen backpack there. And so we just want to thank you for that. I'll talk about this later on, but we've got another project for these guys coming up really soon that you can help with, which is fun. Here's the inside of another one of the tents. Sorry it's really red, but that's, Liz's pictures are better than mine because she used a flash, but that's, again, because of the tarp. But you can see these kids are holding up pictures that kids from Holy Redeemer School here in Evansville drew and sent these beautiful cards for us to take, and this later erupted, I have a great video of it, into a thank you chant. And so thank you, Evansville, for making this possible. Thank you for giving with your whole hearts. Another thing that you've helped do through our work at Road to Moffrock is to build the second story to that building right there, and that is a library. And my mom is Miss Becky, from the Evansville-Vanderburgh Public Library System. She spent maybe 25 years working here as a librarian, and so to be the child of a librarian who grew up learning and grew up loving to read and go to libraries, it's really kind of cool to have played a part in building a library on the other side of the world, specifically for refugee kids. And so thank you, Evansville, for making my dream come true. And specifically Scholars for Syria, and are there any students here who are involved in the Science Alliance for Syria? Awesome, thank you guys, representing in the back row. These guys, if you don't know, have done some incredible work fundraising, and they have this little bucket that they've been putting out at these events, as well as organized a really awesome Chipotle fundraiser, which I hope you guys got to go to before the kid threw up and everybody had to leave. But even despite that, it still managed to raise almost $1,000 to provide science equipment to go into this library. So while Liz and I were there, we took out, this is in the town of Ozrock, Jordan, in the eastern part of the country in the desert, middle of nowhere. So we took these two science kits, like, I'm so not a science person and I'm jet lagged, so this is really bad. A microscope, awesome! I went to 8th grade. And so there's a really cool little kit with like these slides and stuff so they can do tactile and visual learning. And so, so it's not just a place of books, it's a place of real extracurricular learning. And so here's two of the kids reading. When they do well in the class, like if they get a good mark or they demonstrate excellent behavior, one of the rewards is that they go get to have library time. And they're like dying to have library time, which makes this, English major librarian's daughter's heart just burst with joy. And so I couldn't get enough of the library. This little girl, she just, oh my gosh, I love her to death. She couldn't get enough of the reading. She couldn't get enough of the library. The cool thing about her is that 6 months ago when Nick and I visited this school, it was her first week at this school. It's her very first week going back to school after 3 years of not being to school. And she was in her little uniform at that time. Her head actually wasn't covered at that time, so when I met her again, I almost didn't recognize her, but it was her personality and her love for life and learning that made me realize, oh my gosh, that's, and I usually change their names, but because I haven't been back very long, I haven't had time to think of fake names. So please just don't post this on Facebook or anything, but her name is Noor, which means light in Arabic, and it's also my Arabic name that I use because Ellen also means light. And so I've always felt a tie to this girl. And when I met her and I realized this was Noor, I cried, of course. But so she is doing so well. And 6 months ago, she came up to me and she showed me her little workbook of all the work that she had done. And she took me through this whole book and showed me every page. Her math, her Arabic, her writing, everything she'd done. She was so proud of it, and she has not stopped loving learning. So thank you, Scholars for Syria, thank you, Science Alliance for Syria, for just really giving wings to these kids' dreams. Thank you so much, and then they sent you guys a little thank you. So thank you, Road to Moffrock friends. This is what one of the classrooms looks like. These kids out there they have one classroom that's in an actual building, and then the other classrooms are in the prefab containers. This is out there in the middle of nowhere, so these are older desks, but these are the types of desks that the other prefab containers have. So, okay, what else has Evansville done? There's like so much. I could spend the whole time tonight talking about it. This doesn't look like you've done much, but this is you in the process of doing. You guys just helped raise $15,000 to build a playground for kids at this school. This happens to be in the town of Moffrock. So you can see like down here to the right, kind of that whole section, that's where your playground is going to go. It's on its way shipping from Jacksonville, Florida right now to the port of Aqaba in the Red Sea. So the build is scheduled to start probably later May, beginning of June. So definitely stay tuned to our Facebook page for photos of that. And then this is going to be a soccer field, or a football pitch. As they say, and so it's going to be kind of a mini one, but it's really awesome to see that. And that's my husband right there. He's standing up there at the very top, and this is what we haven't done yet, but we're in the process of doing. That's a third floor that we're building onto this school. And we want to invite you guys tonight as the next project what you can help us do is help us complete the building of this floor. It's going to be a third floor of classrooms for kids at this school. Right now there's, I think, about 105 Assyrian kids going there, ages 6 through like 10 or 11. They have curriculum for 1st through 3rd grade. But to put it in perspective for you, all the kids are on the 1st grade curriculum right now. So you have your little 6-year-old class and you have your 10-year-old class, and they're learning the same things. That's because many of those 10-year-olds, in fact most of those 10-year-olds, have not yet been to school, ever. And so they're trying to kind of accelerate it for them, but everybody's kind of starting from square one. Over half of the kids in Moffrock, Syrian refugee kids, are not in school. The Jordanian government has opened up the Jordanian public schools to Syrians, but imagine if the EBSC had to open its doors up to double its population, it probably couldn't really accommodate that, and neither can the Jordanian system. So a lot of the kids are going to the Jordanian government schools, but a lot of them there's simply not room for them. There's like a government school like 2 doors down from this school, and the kids live right by it, and they just can't get into it. Okay, so that's what you're doing. Thank you, Evansville. You guys did awesome. We're so grateful for that. Thank you so much to our board president, Jennifer Colbert, who is here tonight, and her husband, Nick, and as well as Liz. Liz raised $3,000 in just a matter of weeks toward Road to Moffrock to come on her trip. We're so grateful for that, and thank you, Scholars for Serious Science Alliance. This is what you guys are doing. So the impact you're having. Okay, that's the physical stuff you've built or done. These are the people who are enjoying it, who are learning because of this. This little girl, again, please don't put this online, her name is Marwa. And Marwa is actually Liz's kid, not mine. There's always one kid in every bunch that just like, you're like, I have no idea why this kid loves me and is clinging to me. This is Marwa for Liz. And so they were kind of inseparable for the couple days that we were out at their school. And she did the same thing that Nora did to me. She ran up to Liz with her book. And she showed her everything that she had done. And this is Marwa, not realizing that I was filming her and taking photos of her, flipping through, showing us every page that she had done and sharing that with Liz. And when we meet with the kids, we always ask them, what's your dream? Which essentially usually translates to, what do you want to be when you grow up? But I don't try to limit them to that. I try to get them to think like broader, like what is your dream for life? What do you want your life to be like? What do you want your family to be like? What is your hope for your country or your just life in general? But they always, they're 6, right? They go to like, I'm going to be a fireman. That's my dream. So Marwa's dream, it always strikes me, when you ask a kid, I feel like in the U.S., like, what do you want to be when they grow up? They kind of pause, they look up in the sky, and they're like, policeman. They think about it. I've never met a Syrian kid who's stopped to think about it. You know why? Because they're already thinking about it. They're thinking about it very, very hard. And so when we asked Marwa, what's your dream? You're 6 years old. What do you want to be when you grow up? She said, I want to be a doctor. And so we were like, well, why do you want to be a doctor? Well, I want to be a doctor because I want to help sick people. Particularly one little girl that I met in Lebanon put it very, very poignantly when she said, I want to grow up to be a pediatrician because I want to go back and help all the children in Syria who have been wounded by the war. These children at age 6 or age 10 already recognize that the weight of their world and their nation does lie on their shoulders, and they're not running away from that responsibility. They are rising to it. Marwa was rising to it. We said, Marwa, okay, that's great. You're pretty serious. You love math. Okay, we asked her favorite subject, math. Got the book out, showed us the math. Okay. Let's get you to be a kid for a little bit. What do you like to do in your free time? Math. I like to do math. Do you like to do anything else other than math? No, I basically just like to do math. Wait a minute. I also like it when it rains, but I like to do math. That's Marwa. This little girl, okay, maybe they're not all super serious. This little girl, I met her, Nick and I met her a couple of months ago in August when we were there, and she was too young to like really be technically at the school, but who can really turn a kid away who wants to learn. And so she's 5 to 6 years old now, and she's easily the most hyper child of the bunch. There's some great video that I've got of her just dancing to Ricky Martin, and she's, wow, dancing circles around every other kid. But we asked her, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she's like, well, first we asked, what's your favorite subject? Okay, English, Inglesi. Why? Why? I don't know. And she did that, and she said, I just like English, kind of duh. And so we said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she's like, an English teacher. And then I love it. She looks like she's squinting here. That's because there's 70 miles per hour worth of wind and sand blowing in the poor child's eyes. So I love it when I would ask her to smile and pose for a picture. She would just shut her eyes and smile, just ready to take it in. So, and then this girl, we've named her Sama. This is our name, Liz and I's name for her, which means sky. And so she's a very beautiful child, very intentional. So she's the kind of child who's always perceiving. She's not the one that's like, hey, look at me, I'm amazing, look what I've done, I've got a funny joke to say. Not a class clown. but she's not shy either. She's very intentional about every time she makes her presence known in the class. She's very intentional about every word she says. And so we wanted to ask Sama, what's your dream? And she said, well, my dream is to be a teacher. And we said, why is your dream to be a teacher? And she said, we said, where do you want to teach, is what we specifically asked. And that's not typically a question I would ask. I really try to not ask the kids about their history. I try not to ask them too much about Syria. I don't want to trigger anything. I also don't want to pigeonhole them to the past. I want them to be thinking about the future. And so we did for this girl, ask her, where do you want to teach? In Jordan or Syria, or do you want to go elsewhere? And she said, I want to go back to Syria to teach. And we said, why? And she said, because the kids there have no schools. So she's going back to Syria. And at that point, she actually started to tear up a little bit. Of course, so did we. And so we kind of, stopped the line of questioning at that point. But I do think that this point is important to make, and perhaps it's not important to make that to the folks in this room. But I think if you watch the news, people are very afraid that everyone from Syria or everyone from Iraq just, is kind of using it as an opportunity to come to the West and resettle. And people are afraid of this. And I don't want to get into how I feel about that thought. But nonetheless, I think it's important to recognize that many of the folks from Syria and Iraq that I talk to, when you ask them, do you want to go elsewhere, do you want to stay in Jordan, or do you want to go back to Syria? More often than not, their answer is, I want to go back to Syria. It's their home, and they recognize that they're needed, that they have a role to play in the future of their country. So, and certainly I'm all about, if they want to come here, then that's great too. I kind of want them here too, but I also want them to go back and rebuild their country. But I think they're so awesome that, I'd kind of like to hang out with them more. But I do just like to make that point because I don't think that gets communicated very well in the news. This is Nora again, the little reader. And this is her with a picture that some of the Holy Redeemer kids sent. This little son with the glasses is pretty awesome, especially since these kids live in like a blazing desert. And so we asked Nora as well, Nora, what do you want to be when you grow up? I know this kid loves learning. I know this kid loves reading. I know she's got to have a plan. Nora did not disappoint. I also want to be a teacher. Why do you want to be a teacher? She said, I want to be a teacher because since I came to this school, I've had so many incredible teachers that have inspired me to do the same for other kids. This is why I called my teachers out at the beginning. Not just because they're awesome, but because this is what teachers do. Teachers inspire. I've been inspired by my teachers. I know you've been inspired by your teachers. And if you are a teacher or a professor, thank you so much for what you do. You really do have an eternal impact, a long-lasting, life-lasting impact. And such is the case with Nora's teachers. There's only one thing I want to put out about the teachers that are teaching Nora and other kids like her. Some of them are refugees themselves. Okay? They're not necessarily board certified. What are all the things you have to pass to be a teacher, like the praxis and all this? They're just people with some knowledge who really care and who want to impart that knowledge onto these kids. They also happen to be really good disciplinarians. I'm amazed. But the way they can keep order and the way they're able to literally snap their fingers and restore order is amazing. But I think the story of the teachers is important too. The story of the teachers and their dreams. I met some teachers in Lebanon and I asked them, why are you doing this? Why are you teaching these kids? What was your background in Syria? And they said, my life, my career, it's over. I don't have hope for it anymore. But I do have hope for these kids. And so my sole purpose in life now is to make sure that they have a future. And this guy is one of those teachers. He's teaching at a tented school. This man, these families are living, they're very close to the Syrian border. these families are living in like little agricultural communities where these farms, which I didn't really know that there were that many farms in Jordan until I went there evidently in March in the winter when everything is really in bloom because it's raining constantly. So they live like essentially as like little indentured servants on these farms. They're not receiving pay, but they're allowed to like live there. But they live in tents. They don't really have showers. They don't really have, like we asked, where do you go to the bathroom? They said, we're free, you know, and so they go wherever. And this is the type of conditions that the kids are living in and coming to school and then learning in, and these are the types of conditions that their teachers are living in. And so Liz had the opportunity particularly to speak to one of the teachers. These were two of the first male teachers I'd actually met. And most of the time the teachers tend to be female that I've met, at least at our partner schools. And these guys were both male. And this one man said to Liz something to the extent of, I have forgotten everything that was in my head before. Now I only look to the future and I only look to them, because I cannot bear it if I look behind. He can't bear to remember what his life used to be. The only way that he can get by is to have hope for the future and to think of what is to come. And every day they get up at 7 a.m. From 7 a.m. to about noon, they invest in that future. They invest in kids like Marwan. I actually forget his name, but it does start with an M, I know that. Let's call him Muhammad, because I actually know that's not his name. So Muhammad, we said, you know, he was kind of a macho boy, and he was kind of like your class clown, so Liz really gravitated to him, and so we said, let's ask him his dream. And so, you know what he wants to be? He said, when I grow up, I want to be a police officer. So we're like, okay, tell us about that. He's like, not any police officer. It's like, I want to work for the secret police. And so there's secret police, obviously, like an FBI or CIA, kind of the equivalent thing. It would be like him saying, I want to be an FBI agent when he grows up. In Iraq, Syria, Jordan, all over, you know, most countries do have these forces. And so they're more like intelligence focused, more so than like law and order traffic violation policemen. So that's what he wants to do. And when we asked him why, he said, so that I can protect my family from the bad guys. So these kids at 10, they're very aware of what's happening. They're very aware that the future of their country is at stake. And here's a kid who wants to go into, you know, making sure that his community is a safer place for his family. So now for the fun part. Liz and I just got back, and the second week, Liz came back, and my husband joined me over in Jordan, and we went to a couple of our other partner programs. And we had the opportunity to actually take the kids on a field trip. And we went to Jerash. Nick came to Jerash with us. Jerash is beautiful Roman ruins in Jordan. And if you haven't been to Jordan, I mean, seriously, just go. Because it's just amazing in every way. I don't think you'll ever experience greater hospitality ever in the world, except for here, Syria is pretty hospitable as well. And so you really will just feel the warmth of the people, as well as they have like every most amazing tourist attraction you could ever want to see there. And so Jerash is one of those places. So we found out that one of the days we were there, we were actually going to be taking the kids on a field trip. Ordinarily, I would jump at that opportunity, but I speak some Arabic, but not a lot. And so as the plans started to kind of be unfolded for us, it became more and more apparent that my husband and I were going to be like in charge of a small group of students at this massive, like, Roman ruins complex that even when Nick and I were there, we lost my husband there for like 30 minutes. We literally lost him, and he's 6 foot tall. And so, you know, how am I going to keep track of all of these 6-year-olds, especially when I don't speak a ton of Arabic? Turns out I speak the right amount of Arabic for 6-year-olds and the most important words for 6-year-olds. So it worked out really well. But we were Team Azraq, Team Blue, and so we started them off like, I wanted to get these kids so juiced about this field trip, and I thought we would all kind of be doing that. Turns out we were the only like weird group. So, you know, like they put these blue bands on them, and you know, this little blue band that like gets covered up by their coat, like that's the only way that you can see which child is yours. And so they put their little blue bands on, and I'm like, what? Azraq! You know, and we're just like chanting, 1, 2, 3, blue, you know. And the kids got so into it. And they just started taking it on their own. So we're like walking into Jerash. This is kind of the Hadrian's Arch, the beginning of the complex. You go through the center there, and they're all like, you know, just over and over, like doing this on their own. They just took on this sense of like teamwork and community. And by the end of it, we were like this little family. Like, it was really precious. But my husband's the one in the glasses, and then we have another girl with us. Okay, so 3 adults, 7 kids. Not like that bad, right? But anyway, we had 4 little boys who were the most precious, well-behaved 6-year-old boys I've ever seen. And whenever one of them would kind of get separated from the group, another one would disappear. And I would be like, I'd be like yelling at the kid for running away. He wasn't running away. He knew where the other kid was, and he was getting him, like, corralling him back to our group, because the kids took very seriously their responsibility to stay in this family unit. It was pretty amazing to watch. So clearly, we had the best group, we had the best team. They were awesome. There was no award at the end, but if there had been, we would have won it. This is Hamdan, cutie patootie. He, like I said, you got your little kid that just latches onto you. Hamdan became obsessed with my husband and pretty much wanted to be carried the whole time. And then he wanted to be lifted up to like the top of these pillars and then jump off of them into my husband's arms. So that was quite the fun and moderately nerve-wracking experience. I think before you ever have children with your spouse, you should definitely take 6-year-olds whose language you don't speak on a field trip to a very big place that's all one color in the bright sun and see how well you do in there. The jury's still out. I haven't had time to talk to him about it in process, so we don't know. Anyway, so this was another one of our little girls, Sada, and she was really precious, and yeah, it's like 60 degrees out. And she's like in this little wool coat, which cracked me up. All the kids were like in fur coats or wool coats because it was very cold in the morning. And so it was so precious when we took the kids. We got on 4 buses. We had this like big caravan, and all the parents came out with their little signed permission slip to get the kids on the bus and to see them off on their field trip, just in the same way that you would do with your kid here. Only these parents have had to overcome incredible obstacles that you and I have probably not had to live through. And so they had them all dressed up, they had them in their coats, they had them with their little bags, making sure they had everything they'd need for the day. And so she got in this wool coat. And I tried many times like to take it off of her and kind of offer to carry it for her, and she wouldn't let me. And she insisted that it be buttoned the whole time too. So I wanted to know, specifically for the kids in our group, what are your dreams? What do you want to be when you grow up? And so I asked her, and she did not take a second to stop and think about it. She said, I want to be a dentist. Which I don't know how many of you were raised on the Burl Ives, Rudolph, old Rudolph. What is that show? It's not claymation. What are those the little awkward Rudolph? Where they've got the little elf who wants to be the dentist. So that was her. Okay, she was the little elf who wanted to be the dentist, who was kind of that's okay if you don't mind, but I want to be a dentist. And so anyway, so it was hilarious. She just kept going on and on and on about teeth and dentistry, and I was just okay, there's a little more of your dream than I was interested in knowing. So I said, okay, why do you want to be a dentist? And she's like, oh, to make tons of money, of course. Yeah. So anyway, that was that. I thought she just really found teeth fascinating. No, I forgot to mention Hamdan. We asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? He wants to be a pilot. He didn't stop and think about it either, and he actually went like this: I want to be a pilot. In Arabic, of course. But, and so we asked him, why do you want to be a pilot? And he said, I don't know. But whenever I see one fly by in the sky, I can't think about anything else except for me in it. And I stop and I imagine that I'm the one flying that plane. So cute. Kind of explains why he wanted to like leap off of everything too. So anyway, this little girl, her name is Salam, which means peace. And this is a sadder story. And I apologize, but I think it's an important one to share. Just a couple of weeks ago, Salam's mother passed away. Her mother was 31 years old. Her father is 80 years old. This little girl doesn't have a lot of stability in her life now, because her father's rather old. And her father actually was one of the parents who got out and walked his child to the field trip that day. And stayed until the bus left. Like an hour later, he stayed and he stayed and he watched and he waved. And I share this story not because it's a sad story. I don't like to share sad stories. I share it because it actually demonstrates the hope in what these kids are learning. So after Salam's mother passed away, the teachers and the principal at the school found out about it. And they got together and they started thinking, what can we do to help support this family during this time? And so they got the kids involved in the class. And the whole class came together and put together a little care package for Salam and her father. And then the teacher went with just a couple of the students to visit the family in their home and to share this little care package with them. And so the father was very grateful for it. And the family, I think, was touched by it. But what really strikes me about this is that these kids aren't just learning, Arabic, English, science, math, etc. They're learning life skills and character skills. And here are these children who themselves don't have much, whose classmate has just lost her mother, who are now coming together and saying, how can we support our classmate? How can we support our community? And I don't know. I don't like to make generalizations about certain populations or countries, but I think this just runs in Syrian blood. I just see a lot of community organizing, a lot of coming together. And so it didn't surprise me that this was the natural response. But it just really encouraged me. And I did not know. I had heard that there was a girl who had gone through this. I had heard about Salam, but I could not have told you of all the kids which kid she was. Until the day of the field trip, a little bit late after school had already started, a little girl came scurrying along the road. And I went to the gate of the school and I motioned her in, yalla, yalla, and she came and I greeted her and I said, Ahlan, welcome. And she went from kind of being focused and serious to just kind of melting in her face, brightened up and smiled. And she reached her little hand up and she took my hand and I walked her into the school. And then later, quite a couple minutes later, this elderly man came down the road and I was later explained that that's Salam and her father. And I didn't know, but just a cute little story. She also wore a fur coat the whole time. And so just really, whatever they have, they seek to take great care of it. I think, because they realize how fragile it is. I want to be sensitive to your time, and I know we started a little bit late, but I just want to share maybe 2 more stories with you, if that's okay. And I'd love to spend some more time on Q&A. And if you decide during the Q&A you want more stories, I've got more stories and photos. But this is a kind of a multi-family story. Liz and I had the opportunity to meet this family a couple weeks ago. I noticed from some of your reactions that you're studying the intricacies of this photo now, which is exactly what I want you to do. And if you can't see, feel free to come to the center because this is a photo I think worth studying. You're going to get to know in a minute more about this family and who they are individually. But this is a family that's from Iraq. They came to Jordan 5 years ago. The Iraqis aren't really classified as refugees, even though they're refugees, but they're not getting like the same services and benefits that the Syrians are getting. So they're really, really on their own. So one of our partner programs in Amman is one of the only programs really intentionally focused on Iraqis. And so they've been serving this family for a while, and the family's story is, they were living and working in Baghdad and elsewhere in Iraq. And then when they had to flee, there was a lot of sectarian violence, there was a lot of bombings, and the family experienced that. And so each of the family members is kind of dealing with the ramifications of that in their life today, even 5 years ago. So, look at them and how old they are now, anywhere from, I think, 7 to 17, and then the father. So they were 5 years younger when they were going through this. And so the father recently ended up having to separate from the mother because the mother has, such severe PTSD, psychological needs that she's now had to kind of leave the family and seek some hospitalization and some more intensive care. And the father arrived at this decision, very reluctantly. But ultimately he decided that his children weren't really safe. And so I think, just thinking about the psychological impacts of war, it's fine to see these kids and be like, oh, they look like they're fine, but not all of us experience life and trauma the same way. And for this mother, it ended up separating her from her family. And so the children, with the exception of the daughter, have not been to school. The oldest son was going to school in Iraq, but he's like 15, so he didn't make it very far in school. The middle son, right there, he's 10, so he kind of left Iraq right when he should have been starting kindergarten. So he never got the opportunity to go to school, and then the other two were not old enough to go to school. So you have 5 children, 4 of whom have never been educated, and you have a father who's not allowed to work. So in Jordan and Lebanon, they don't allow refugees to legally work. So for many of these families, if they are working, it's kind of under the table, and it's just really difficult for them to make it. And so the father's in this situation. And so the only one in the family who has any education or any hope is the daughter, who's 17. And speaks incredible English, by the way. So we got to have a fantastic conversation with her. And so I just want you guys to remember this picture, and I'm going to kind of break this down on an individual level in a second. But I just want you to remember these faces and these personalities. These are the 2 youngest little girls. They pretty much didn't stop giggling or jumping in my face the whole time that they were there. We've got like a Bert and Ernie, and then like a bunch of stuffed animals that they brought out to share with us. And they're just giggling. And they've never been to school. So I wanted to talk to them about this, talk to them about, is it possible for you to be going to school? So we're working right now through the Human Story campaign to send 400 kids from this community, Iraqis and Syrians, to school for an entire year. So the equivalent of $100 sends a kid to school for an entire year. These are 2 of the kids who will benefit from that. They are working to get them into a school now. And so I wanted to ask them what they want to be when they grow up. And so the little girl in the front, she just bounces everywhere she goes. She has one speed, and that's bounce. And so I had to take like photos through the video, like in order just to get like photos of her that weren't blurred. I just had to stick my finger down on the video. And so I asked her, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I want to be a doctor. And the little brother was like, oh my gosh, please. He said, please don't be a doctor. You'll kill all of your patients because you have so much energy. And gotta say, she might want to consider a different profession, or at least calm that down, because there wasn't a part of her body that did not stop moving for more than 4 seconds. But she's young, she's giggly, she's thinking about it. So I pulled the family together to take the photo that you just saw, to take this nice little family photo. And she wouldn't stop making faces for the camera or running up to my camera, so that I've got this one where the father's just like, ah, you know, like corralling her back. And so the best photo I could get was with her like sticking her lip out. Like that's the most serious photo. And I think that's great, because what do you want your family photo to do? You want to communicate the personality of your family. You want to communicate what it's like to live with your family on a daily basis. And that kid, she achieved that. So this is Ali. He's the oldest son. He's 15 years old. He hasn't been to school in 5 years, but he wants to be a video game engineer. And then the oldest daughter, 17 years old, again, spoke fantastic English, so we were able to really ask some very detailed questions. She spent quite a bit of time talking to us and sharing with us her hopes and dreams. She's planning to take her exam soon, her kind of high school exam, to see if she passes. It's very competitive. It's very difficult to pass. So she said, I'm placing a lot of pressure on myself to get a very high mark. I said, well, why are you doing that? And she said, well, one, I have to get a very high mark in order to go to college in the United States. We said, well, where do you want to go to college? She said, Harvard or Yale. So, where else? And she wants to be a psychologist when she grows up. Also important to keep in mind the background of her family. Her younger brother, who's 10, is so traumatized. He's the exact opposite of his little sisters. He won't speak to anyone. He won't really move much. He has one facial expression, and he'll only speak to the father. And so this girl, we had a fun conversation with her. Okay, we talked about life and fun stuff. We didn't just talk about purpose and heavy things. But at the end she said to us, I have taken the whole weight of responsibility for my family onto my shoulders. I bear the responsibility for the future of my family. I must go to school in America in order to provide for my family. They don't have any other option. I have no choice but to succeed, because if I don't succeed, my whole family will fail. This is the responsibility that this kid is facing. And she's doing it with a smile on her face. The other piece of this family that you don't get from that first photo is that they live with this family. It's two single fathers who are living together. This man is also from Iraq. He has a daughter who has a disability. It was very unclear to us what she lives with, but she does use a wheelchair. She only has recently been able to start using a wheelchair due to the organization we partner with helping to secure her with one. Before that, she was not able to get out of bed, ever, for years. She doesn't speak, and she really isn't able to kind of interact in a way that you or I might recognize. Her father obviously knows the intricacies of her personality and is able to very beautifully express that to us. This man's wife left him when the daughter was born because she didn't want a child with a disability. And so he was forced to either give up his daughter, go live his life, have a future, or to take the responsibility for his daughter. And he chose the latter. That's difficult enough. It's even more difficult when your community is under attack, your life is in danger, and you have to flee to another country as a refugee with a child who has a disability that requires a wheelchair, but she doesn't have a wheelchair. And his father has not abandoned his kid. And he was very quiet. As we were talking, he also speaks English too, so he was engaging from time to time, but he was also just very shy and withdrawn. And he sat there the whole time that we spoke with his family for over an hour, holding his daughter's hand and just rubbing it the whole time. He's so in love with his daughter, despite all of the difficulty. And for any parent, but particularly a parent with a child who lives with some sort of disability, you know that struggle, and you know what this father is committed to and is giving up, in order to provide for his daughter. So I think it's really awesome just that family took in that other family. The first father, he said, I saw this man and I thought, we are in the same situation. We have to work together. We have to support one another in this. again, community mindset. I'm gonna probably I'm gonna skip over this family. It's a great family too. These little girls, the little girl in green, she loves art. She wants to be an artist, and we sat down on their floor, and the first thing she did was just put a notebook in my lap and hand me a pencil. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And then our translator said, she wants you to draw a cat. Like, I cannot draw. And so I drew a really pathetic cat. They looked at me and looked at the cat, just a little stunned, and then they just smiled so very nicely, and then they the little one in black drew a cat as well. Her cat was awesome. It was like she was saying, oh, let me help you. This is how you draw a cat. Try again. And they were trying so hard, and then they started trying to explain it to me in Arabic, how to do it. And then they wanted a dog, and then a flower. I nailed the flower, and then Liz helped me out and drew a dog. But at the end, the girl shared, she loves art. She wants to be an artist. She wants to be a teacher. And then she added, your drawings are very good. Very good. I'm gonna skip this family too. Again, I just want to be respectful of your time. But I'll just briefly touch on them because this is actually the photo that was used kind of in the postcard or the digital picture that was used to advertise this event. And so I thought I would share that story with you tonight. You know what? I don't care. If you need to leave, I'm totally not offended. That's fine. I do want to be respectful of your time. But I really want to share this family story with you. Is that okay? Okay, cool. So this is also an Iraqi family. This is, we did a fundraiser last summer, at the end of last summer, where we sold these shirts, these Wings for Dreams shirts. So this woman right here helped send these kids back to school. We raised money to send about 50 kids back to school for an entire year from this community, many of whom are Iraqis. And this was one of those families. Nick and I got to visit them last summer. And absolutely adorable, endearing family. One of my favorite groups of kids I've ever met. But their story, there's always more than meets the eye. We sat down with this family in their home, and a couple things struck me right away that were different. One of which was there was, mold all over the walls. And it was summer, so sometimes when you visit families in the winter, there might be more mold or mildew present because of the moisture there, and they don't really have insulation on the walls. But during the summer, it's not usually as bad. Particularly for me, I have a mold allergy, and so I could tell it right away when I walked in. So that surprised me, and the families are like any families. I think we tend to dehumanize people because, we label them as a refugee and we determine what this means for that family and what that looks like. But, they have dignity, they have worth, they're families just like we are, they're people just like we are, and many of them work jobs that are just like your job, or maybe they actually had a better job than you do. They've just been through something different than you have. And so we walked into this home, and they had made every effort to cover up the mildew on the walls, and then there were roaches kind of crawling everywhere, which is again not typical. And I don't say that to disparage the family at all. I think they were trying very, very hard. They just had very little. Keep in mind, Iraqis don't get really any services, and so they welcomed us into their home, and we sat down. And about 20 minutes had gone by, and we were having this conversation with this family. It was going great, but I noticed we haven't had tea yet. So anyone, from an Arab background or who's visited the Middle East knows that, having tea or having coffee is a part of the hospitality. So you'll come into a family's home, and the first thing that will happen is one of the children will be sent off to start preparing the tea. And then a couple minutes later, you'll be served tea. You'll be welcomed into this family's home and into their relationship circle. And it is one of my favorite things about visiting the Middle East. It really helps you feel tied and connected to these families. It also, I think, is really important when visiting refugee families because it's like, well, here we are, the Americans, with our money, coming in to like save the day, right? We don't ever want to communicate that to families, but I think just the nature of our situation in life versus their situation in life just kind of inherently communicates that. And so when a family has an opportunity to serve you, that's really important, and they take it very seriously. And so about 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, the oldest son in the New York shirt, he comes back, and he's holding a bag. And it's like 110 degrees. We went to Jordan in August, which is a great idea, let me tell you. And so he comes back with a bag full of ice-cold bottled water and Sprites. I'm not a big Sprite fan. That day, I was a huge Sprite fan. And so he sets them down, and I'm like confused. I'm like, what is happening? You know, we're not getting tea. And so it's at that moment that the father says, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that you've come all this way from America, that you have raised this money to help send my children to school and the children of Iraq and Syria to school, and I'm having you in my home and I can't even afford to serve you tea. He said, I'm embarrassed, and I'm so sorry. Please accept this Sprite and bottled water as a token of our hospitality and our welcoming you into our home, and just as an expression of gratitude for what you've done. And so then you're like, do I drink the Sprite, or do I like not drink the Sprite? You know, you just feel like, wow, this family just probably spent their whole month's worth of a living allotment on your Sprite. You know, like, I could have gone out and bought my own Sprite. I could have bought a whole family Sprite. I could still be buying Sprite for them, you know? And it humbled me to my core. It's one of the most significant experiences. You know, you have these kind of top 5 life experiences that change you forever. This changed me forever. And this family changed me forever. And the father continued on. He said, you know, back in Iraq, I was not a wealthy man, but I was a comfortable man. And I could always provide for my family. I owned a supermarket, and our family lived on a compound with our whole extended family, and I helped take care of them all. And now, I'm a refugee, and I can't even serve our American guests tea. So, again, this is not the picture of the Middle East that you get on the news. I wish it were. This is why I'm committed to driving across the country on jet lag to tell these stories, because I think this is really, really important. And so we asked the kids what they want to be when they grow up, and this little 6-year-old Aya, when she grows up, she wants to be a cook. We asked, what will you cook? She said, pizza. So not exactly the response back you expect to get from a young Iraqi child, but I don't know, I've never been to Iraq, maybe there's a lot of pizza. And I'll close with this young man. I met him a couple months ago in Lebanon. I asked an entire group of, I'd say they were 4th graders, 4th grade age. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everyone from the class, they raised their hand and they started blurting out all these answers of what they want to be. Till the very end, this young man stood up and he came forward to the front of the classroom. And he said, I want to be the president. And I said, of what country? He said, I want to be the president of Syria so that I can protect my people. And I have a young friend who's an Afghan refugee who lives in New England, and she said to me, I don't know very many people of that background, particularly who are refugees, who would have the audacity to admit publicly in front of their peers that they want to be president. Okay, keep in mind, they're coming from a country where they're not really allowed to vote for president. It's kind of part of the problem. And so for him to claim this is pretty bold. So she said, I don't know many kids who in that situation who would claim that, let alone doing so while wearing a ripped jacket. This is the future of this country. This is the future of this region. We believe in them dearly, and this is why we do what we do, and why we're glad that you guys are here. You're part of this story too. You're part of this human story. And again, I want to get it to Q&A, but I just want to share a few quick ways through our Human Story campaign about how you guys can have an impact. The first way is that you can help us build a 3rd story to this school. This will expand the ability of this school to serve students in this community? No, it's not going to send every Syrian kid from that community to school, but it's probably going to send like 50 more, 50 kids who aren't going to school. 50 kids who've never been to school, there's one of them. So the principal wasn't looking at this moment. The second thing that you can do, you guys just helped build a playground for the kids at the school I just showed you, and the little girl with her tongue out. These kids go to school in the tented schools that I told you about. This is them peeking outside of their classroom. We want to build them a playground too. It'll be on the campus of the center that kind of runs all of these schools. They're just little pop-up schools. They're informal schools. They're catch-up schools. But this is a nonprofit, an NGO that has been in this community for a long time and is very well respected. And they're now bringing the kids into these caravans onto their property and bringing them into school every day. And we want them to have a playground at that property. And if you would have seen these kids flying all over Jerash, like, you would recognize these kids really need a healthy outlet, someplace safe to play. They cannot play in their communities. It is not safe. It is not safe. So we just encourage you guys. The other way that you can help is we're trying to send 400 kids to school for an entire year. So if we can do these three things with $75,000. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but these are three pretty huge things that really can make a tremendous impact. You can't do any of them on your own. Most of you probably don't have $75,000 to give me to do these things. But together, each of you can make a small difference, just like the Science Alliance for Syria has done by having a Chipotle fundraiser. Wait a couple months, have another Chipotle fundraiser. You know, it's, I can't speak to how much work it was to organize, and I certainly appreciate that. But it's not like something like when we planned the Wired event where you have to, you know, arrange a lot of logistics. It's a little bit easier. You guys can do it. I believe in you. I'll help turn Evansville people out to Chipotle. They give 50% of the proceeds back to Road to Moffrock, which is really awesome. So you guys have a unique sphere of influence that I can't reach. Only you can. I've left Evansville 10 years ago. I have contacts in this community, but most of you in this room I don't know. I'm in this room because I knew like one person who connected me, who connected me, who connected me. And that's what you guys can do too. Have me out to speak. That would be great. I come back to Evansville a couple times a year. Would love to speak. If you know people in other communities, particularly colleges and any other student groups, I speak to kids a lot. That's because we believe in the power of grassroots. We believe in kids helping kids. And that's what we're trying to facilitate here. So please just take some time to think of, is the Murad family here by chance? Right here tonight? Yeah, thank you. Hi. Yes, I wanna thank you guys. This is a really cool, fun way that like you can have an impact. The Murad family organized a Super Bowl party, and they took our Super Bowl challenge and they raised about $2,500 to, and your money actually went to help supply those caravan classrooms for the kids who go to school in the tented communities. So thank you so much. They had a Super Bowl party. She made an awesome like cheese log in the shape of a football. It was pretty cool. You know, you're gonna have a Super Bowl party anyway. Like Liz had an Oscar party. You know, what are you already doing that you can essentially use as a way to make money? You know, it doesn't have to be like, oh my gosh, I have to organize this massive event. Only crazy people like me like to do that. Okay, so think about what you're already doing and how you can use your unique sphere of influence. The other thing you can do, we have just launched the sale of these T-shirts. Awesome. Jennifer, Nick, and Gabriella are modeling a couple of our shirts here. They have and then this is Liz. Haha, I didn't know you were going to do that, did you? This is Liz and Aman with one of the other styles we have, and we have them in kids sizes too. So we have multiple styles. We have that bright green one like in a pink too. This is the ladies style. $20 and below. Kids are 18. These are on sale on our website. If you just go to the shop on our website, roadtomoffrock.org. We've got our website and papers you can take here. You can purchase a t-shirt. This all goes directly into that $75,000. The company that's printing these for us, T Originals, is really passionate about what we're doing. They've agreed to donate an extra $1 off of take an extra $1 off our profit margin to donate to this cause. So T-shirts are $20. About $15 of that is literally coming to Road to Mock Rock. That's pretty cool, considering it does actually cost them to print these T-shirts, and they have to make a living too. So we're encouraging people to help us sell these T-shirts. roadtomockrock.org/store. You can get your own T-shirt. We've also put together a whole digital toolkit to help you be able to sell these T-shirts in your community, on your own social media pages. We're encouraging people to sell 10 T-shirts. 10 T-shirt challenge, what I'm calling it, because evidently people like hashtags. So hashtag 10T challenge. Sell 10 T-shirts. That can, how many kids? That can send like 3 kids to school, or 2.75 kids to school. That's pretty incredible, because those 2.75 kids might be some of the kids that you heard tonight. And as you can tell, they've got some pretty big plans and some pretty big dreams that I don't think we'll have too much trouble delivering on if they're given the opportunity. So, thank you guys so much, and yeah. Yeah.
So, if somebody's interested in, like, I've never been to the Middle East, I would like to go just see what it's like, this Road to Mock Rock. Are they open to having people go, and like how many people, and how does some of the little bit of the business work?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely like to take people with us on our trips. We take small groups on our trips. We took 2 people with us this time, and or 3 people actually. But what I did was I organized it where one group went the first week and the other group went the second week. So they got a little bit different experience. We don't want to be, we want to be able to like show people what we're doing and the awesome impact that our partners are having on the ground. But we don't believe in refugee tourism. And there's a lot of that happening. And so we want people to come with us, but we want those people to commit to being involved. And mostly what we would like is if you can get involved in some way and help in your community in spreading the word and helping with fundraising. So, Jennifer and Nick organized, if you got to go to the Wired event back at the beginning of December, that was all these guys. That was fantastic, as well as quite a few of you in this room, Josh, other folks who helped volunteer for that event. And so, it's grassroots. We like to see people do something like that. Liz took a different route in raising money, but she raised $3,000 for Road to Mock Rock, not for her own travel expenses, for Road to Mock Rock for these kids in order to go on that trip. So I personally think that that's kind of the best way, and we can negotiate like what that looks like for you. Some people raise it before they go, some people raise it afterwards, some people connect us with a bunch of different groups to get us in front of people. But we don't believe in just kind of parading people in front of these families. We're very careful when we go on the home visits as well to kind of take smaller numbers. So if we had a larger team, we'd divide that up. Most of the families we meet with, they're totally used to having people come, but I mean, just imagine if you had a constant stream of strangers coming to your house being like, whoa, refugees, what's a refugee look like? Like it's this, like a sideshow, that this is not what it is. It just makes me so sick, especially on this last trip, what I am kind of seeing happen. So we're wanting to be careful about that. But if you'd like to travel with us, we'd love to have you. If you'd like to get involved in any other way, we need people who have skills, graphic design, accounting, if you're just a really well-connected person, we like really well-connected people. Whatever your skill is, if you think there's a way you can use it, contact me. You can contact us on the website, on the contact tab, or I can give you my email afterwards as well. But definitely, I think it puts into, actually, Nick, Liz, would you like to say anything about your experience on the trip and how that made you, I'm going to throw you under the bus, buddy. So, maybe how that helped you kind of conceptualize or put into context what you had seen on the news versus kind of what is reality. Liz has particularly done a lot of research for her master's program on the education system, so she actually got to experience it firsthand. So either of you care to share anything?
Yeah, so like, you see the media, you see the news, and this was before the election period, so that wasn't the big thing. You just saw a lot of devastation, a lot of destruction. Of course, ISIS had the big headlines all the time, and there was, you got to think people are living lives. There's stuff that's going on. What's happening to the people that are living in these countries that are seeking some kind of asylum, some kind of safety, right? They've left their home country and they're looking for safety. So, but the media wasn't ever portraying that, and so I had the opportunity to go to Mafraq, and it was very eye-opening, getting to spend time with the families that were Iraqi and Syrian, and just to hear their stories. I mean, it's literally gut-wrenching stories to hear. You have this amazing job, all right? So like I'm a physical therapist. So these people had these jobs that made very good incomes. They had a very nice home, had cars, and they had friends and family all around them, and just lived these normal lives. And all of a sudden, just in the blink of an eye, it was just over. And so they were just stuck, literally, like in the crossfires of a war. So you had the government on one side, and you had, a rebel force on the other side, and they're just stuck in the middle. And bombs and rockets and gunfires going off, and they're literally helpless. You can't go to one side or the other, otherwise you'd be killed. And so they managed to trek hundreds of miles or kilometers to be able to get to Jordan or Turkey or Lebanon for safety. And then they're trying to piece together some semblance of a life. It's not going to be the same than what they had back home. And for them to be open and to tell their stories, and to be appreciative, and one of the big things, got to talk to a young Iraqi man who was helping out in Amman. He was like, go back and tell people what it's really like, what's really happening, and we need your help. We need America's help. And I just thought, wow, it kind of rocked me to my core, because I get to sleep in a bed all night. I don't have bombs going off next to me. And I get to go to my pantry and get what I want to eat, and go to work and drive my vehicle. I don't have those fears. I don't have these concerns about my kids not getting a good education, whether it's at home or off to a school or anything like that. And here they are. They have those concerns, and they're trying to figure out every day, literally every day, they have to figure out how are we going to make it. Every day. Sometimes we sit as students, it's like, oh, I got this test. Oh, I'm worried about this test. And these are real life situations. So, it was profound.
Yeah, so how I kind of got involved was a little different. I'm working on a master's in international relations with a focus on the Middle East. And so I've done so much research, reading UN reports and like all of these statistics and the numbers and the, very like kind of removed, and you start hearing the news and you just get frustrated because it seems so huge. And so it was really kind of a research trip for me, but what it really did was bring in that other side of it, like not a statistic. Now I have faces, crying the whole time through the whole thing. I have faces, I have stories, and it changes my perspective on what I'm reading and what I'm learning. And I think that our media does not do a great job at all. I think our media is a little bit of refugee tourism at this point with some of the stories, and I think so. I love the idea of grassroots, where we bring personal stories back, and it's not just this huge situation. It's something that we're all connected to, and the issues will continue to affect even our lives, down the line. So to bring kind of that personal into these huge political issues I think is really helpful for me and life-changing on many levels, but for that reason it was really important.
And both of these guys added so much just to our experience and our trip too. I love the perspective that each individual person has, and it's just so much fun traveling with them both. So thank you guys.